Yo people, what's going on? It's your boy Ceebo and I'm here with Northstar Politics, and today we do have a doozy. We're going to be discussing Labour's new asylum seeking laws, Adnan Hussein leaving your party and the implications of it, and how Trump is going mad and Putin's got the files. We're also going to chat about how Blair Babies is deeper than rap, and you know that I've got a Let Me Land tape loading for the people them there. All ears on Blair Babies, all eyes on a Northstar. Let's get into it.
And we're back, episode 7, Sean.
A special one today, may I add.
Are you going to start the cypher?
Listen, I am least qualified on this table right now to do a cypher.
And I'm also very unqualified because I sat here with Ceebo, S. Weezy in the building.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you guys, thank you. I'm doing great. I cannot complain at all. Happy to be here.
For those of you at home that might not know, one, you should get to know.
True.
But for me, I think Ceebo is the best young rapper coming out of London right now.
That's facts.
Facts, they are. And he just dropped his tape, Blair Babies. So you know already why he's here. You understand there's politics.
You get what I'm trying to say?
How you feeling?
Feeling good, you know. The reaction to it has been so mad. So, you know, I'm very grateful for it. And, you know, to see people that engage in it and the politics of the tape, you know, in a serious way, like, you know, it's very gratifying.
And can I even say something? Like, we're saying that Ceebo's tape's political or that his music's political, but it's not what you're thinking.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? He ain't doing hocus pocus jokers things.
Nah.
Real rap, real
Bro,
beats.
let me even add my 2 cents. Because obviously, in the Islamic paradigm, music, it's a bit controversial, you know? It's a bit controversial, but Sheikh Sean, permissible music right there. No, but honestly, like, I mean, like, I have not even a complicated, but more of like a nuanced relationship with music where I think like it's very important, it's beautiful, but I don't really listen to it constantly. But like this week, having it in my ears, walking to work, I said to you before we started filming, I felt like a main character, fam.
Come on now.
No, it was really like, I mean, we're going to dive into it later in this episode,
And
but you should be proud, man.
You know, this is a good synergy because you watched the show.
Yeah, literally.
And we got mutual friends and that, so the link up's just been perfect.
It's been so overdue.
Speaking of, we need to put on screen that tweet that
came
out a few days back.
I think her name's Keisha.
Yeah.
So she woke up and the only thing she listened to is like Blair Babies and Northstar Politics.
And
Wow.
Keisha, you're welcome.
Yeah, this one's for you,
welcome.
Keisha.
Big like you. I was with Keisha the other day. That's amazing.
Oh, there we go.
You know what I mean?
Perfect.
It's mad.
I was going to ask you as well. We were talking off camera already about the politics stuff, and obviously in the music you're quite conscious, but you also do other things. You write. I've seen you on TikTok throwing absurd takes around. Ceebo's got to Let Me Land come in, gonna shake the room. But how is it for you, especially with your background before music, being somewhat academic?
I think it makes things so interesting. Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like I'm pointedly I'm pointedly aware of like the influence what I say will have on discourse, and therefore like the life of others, like just outside of my immediate circle.
Just know at home, like just what that background is.
For those that don't know me, you know what I mean? That background is I have a degree in politics and sociology.
Come on.
At the University of Warwick. You know what I mean?
Jeez.
High second class, them things there. You know what I mean? Like,
not many rappers can say that, you know.
True.
They're coming like Frank Lampard when he got all the GCSEs.
You know what I mean?
In your industry, it's like, you must be top dog, innit?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, the man runs into you're bare smart, you know, like, do you know what I mean? Bears,
But
like.
I've heard that like back in the day, like you actually started off doing like the kind of talk to cameras, the politics takes, that type of stuff.
Yeah, this is the thing, like, you know, if you're familiar with me and you was around like last year, you will know that like I had a lot of free time on my hands. Do you know what I mean? Like I just graduated, you know what I mean? Super unemployed. I was like, yeah, man, let me get these takes off. Do you know what I mean? Now's the time to be doing that.
Yeah,
and yeah, obviously a lot of it just revolved around, you know, politics. Some were music related takes, but most of it I related to politics. Do you know what I mean? So like, yeah, I was just talking. Like, I must have.
And like at the core of that, then for you, then why is that actually so important to do that? Because obviously, when people are artists, they like kind of, I guess, hinge their music on like certain things. But for you, it's the political. Like, why is that?
I think just because I'm aware of like how much the political has influenced my life. Do you know what I mean? Whether it be on a macro or micro scale, you know, I think there's a lot of things I could talk about, but because of the fact I know that they're all related to that in one way or the other. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd be remiss if I didn't, you know? Especially because like, I know that interacting with certain artists in my adolescence, that like, you know, they gesture towards the political, you know, it helped me as far as like maturing in certain ways. And it's like, I'd like to have a similar effect on the people that listen to me. So, yeah.
That's real.
We'll get into it though. You know what it is, Hold off on that because we're going to get into it in a big way today. But I think you at home can already understand why Ceebo, you're literally our first guest host or co-host. Yep. We had Champagne Socials come in to replace me while I wasn't here.
Yeah, true.
But it's the first time we've had the three-peat come together.
Come on,
wow.
For the viewers, me and Sean got to recap what we've been up to. Because they knew last week, we mentioned that we were going to be debating some young conservatives on Monday night. We let them know that if it didn't go well, like there'd be no more podcasts coming out. We just pack it in. What happened, my boy?
We signed a new contract. Enough podcasts are coming out because do you know what it is, yeah? Smoky settings for the young conservatives.
Smokiest, fam.
Do you know what it is? So originally we were meant to debate like an MP and a special advisor for Brexit. When we saw that, we thought,
yeah, we were shook.
yeah, we were shook. But then now
But they were shook.
yeah, they were shook as well. And so they dropped out. And so actual kind of young conservatives turned up. Not going to lie, I wanted a bit more of a challenge. I don't know about you.
Yeah?
Yeah, unfortunate, innit? Because it was kind of, you know them ones where you're watching the FA Cup third round and you got this kind of team playing against that kind of team.
Yeah.
It's not even an entertaining thing by the end of it, but it was good to get some points off. It was great also to meet some fans in person, people that love the show.
I think it's weird even saying the word fans, man.
Yeah, it's not fans. I've been trying to workshop
Yeah.
what it is for the people that support Northstar, because fans is, I don't like that.
Now, you had a term. Do you want to land it?
Nah, man. You know what I went for? I was trying to workshop it, yeah, but I was saying like stargazers or something like
Remember what you said about failing in public?
You got to fail in public, innit? That one ain't going to run. But people at home, let us know.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah.
Because you know I got to say the bars, innit? You got to like, share, comment, subscribe. Also for the people on YouTube, head over to Spotify and Apple.
And make sure you rate it.
If you're rating us, you got to be rating us.
True indeed. Yeah,
But if you got any ideas for what you guys could be called, please let me know, because we ain't got no clue.
Yeah. I struggled with that for a while. You know what I mean?
But you got a good one.
Yeah, I got one now.
Oh, wait, what's your one?
The CBBS.
CBBS.
Oh,
It's good, you know.
That's
Yeah.
real British.
All
like,
the branding
culture,
around what he's
yeah.
got going on, yeah, it's packaged nicely. You seen the T-shirts where he's got like the American, like the Democrat Obama thing?
Yeah.
It's like in See We Trust.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But even your recent album cover, bro, is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
How could we even forget about
I
that?
put him onto that. The album cover influenced by the New Labour, the Rise of New Labour book.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm loving it. But we're gonna get into it all.
For sure.
Let's go.
Welcome back to the State of Play, where we're going to give a breakdown on this week's biggest political hot topics. Now, this first one is massive, so I have a lot of information to share because the Labour government have just introduced new asylum-seeking laws. Now, Shabana Mahmood has said, who's the current Home Secretary, is the most sweeping asylum reforms in modern times. So let's go through some of the summaries, or like a summary of the aims and objectives of why we're even here, okay? So their narrative is that global instability and conflict has increased due to migration, right? The historic UK asylum system is just not designed or fit for purpose anymore. And many people now obviously travel through multiple safe countries or use illegal routes, created strain on our public services, with asylum seeking costs rising to around 5 billion a year, and also our social fabric, right? So there's a sort of cultural kind of element to all of this. Now, their reasoning is that the UK's current system is seen as far more generous and permissive than others, and so it's like a pull factor incentivizing a lot of illegal entrants and visa overstayers to actually come here and exploit the system. And so other countries like Denmark, for example, have tightened rules, and the UK basically, you know, is trying to copy that kind of Scandinavian style. And basically, there's kind of 3 categories of changes and aims for all of this. So it wants to basically reduce arrivals, increase removals, and interestingly, expand safe and legal routes, which, what does that actually mean? Because I feel like we haven't seen governments do this in the past before, but they're saying things around community-sponsored pathways for selected refugees.
That kind of jargon.
Yeah, all this type of jargon, shifting the system towards resettlement rather than spontaneous arrival. So there's a little footnote talking about flexibility for Ukraine and Gaza. We'll get thoughts on that in just a bit.
Bro, I suspect it might be more Ukraine.
Yeah.
And look, there's so many different changes. So I'm actually just going to give the viewers at home and us just a top 3, just to kind of give a flavour of it, right? So the first mental one is that they're going to have a confiscation, of asylum seekers' assets, including jewellery.
Stain gang.
So it means that asylum seekers will be required to hand over non-essential valuables, including jewellery, except wedding rings, if that changes anything, and other assets to pay for their accommodation, with the Home Office able to demand repayment later if assets are discovered or become convertible. The second one is that it's actually temporary protection only now for refugees. So refugees will no longer automatically receive long-term protection once refugee status is granted. So leave to remain, which is basically just staying here, is cut from 5 years to 30 months. And in that 30 months, there's going to be repeated reviews, and they can't gain permanent settlement for 20 years unless they pay to enter a work or study route. And finally, the third one that I want to bring up is the removal of families with children, including enforced deportations. So the government plans to deport failed asylum-seeking families and children, beginning with voluntary return payments and escalating to forced removals, including withdrawing support from families who refuse to cooperate. I could go on, but that is literally just 3 that I selected that I found the most, shocking. Where do we even start?
Can I even just start by saying this, yeah?
Go ahead.
Cool, we're going to discuss this, but let's just make sure everyone's aware. Don't let it distract you from what's really going on. 'Cause that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to throw some red meat to like reform or the conservative membership they want to get voting for them. We'll discuss it, but let's not let it distract from that the richest in society are keep on appropriating our wealth and it's not the migrants. You know what I'm saying?
That's it. You know what I mean? Like,
Where are you from, by the way?
what?
Heritage-wise? Because we're free children of migrants here.
Right,
You know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
right, yeah.
I don't know what to say after that. But yeah,
I'm from. My parents are from Angola.
Shout out
oh,
Angola.
nice.
So yeah. Came here like just after Civil War was dying down.
And what, were wedding rings when they came here?
Nah, but that was after.
That was
the fact.
after. Okay, I'm saying they wouldn't have had to keep the wedding ring, but everything else would have got take up.
Oh yeah, no, they would have snatched that.
Crazy. I think, honestly, my thing when it comes to asylum-seeking policy or when it comes to refugee policy is we need to treat people humanely.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's fine that people have control of their borders, countries have control of their borders. That's essential. But just treat people humanely. So I'm fine if the UK government tomorrow decides that they want to have 0 migrants, they think that's their policy. I'm happy for them to go ahead with that. I disagree with them. They should be allowed to enforce their border policy, but they should do it humanely.
Right.
And when you see them talking about like getting rid of the ECHR and stuff, what you're seeing is a regression away from this idea of universal humanitarian spirit.
Well, the interesting thing about the Labour government is that they're trying to find that balance in it all. So, like, the reform on one hand are criticising this, saying it's not going far enough because unless you actually leave the ECHR and basically undermine the international system of human rights that's been built since World War II, this is basically just not going to really work or be as enforceable or effective as what they suggest, which is basically leaving the kind of human or redoing the Human Rights Act. I also think that something interesting that came up yesterday in the debate, because our debate was basically on this topic, is the kind of discourse that myself and Noah, or we kind of want to engender in this topic, is the understanding that immigration and the migrant crisis is literally like the weather. You can't really control it. And so Noah made a good analogy that actually, no matter how hard the winds blow, you should just have a stable house, right? And if you actually look at the facts, we're the 6th largest economy in the world, and actually relatively compared to European countries, we have so much less migrants coming over. But where's the wealth that can actually, build the public services to sustain what is basically something that doesn't seem like you can really control?
I think as well, like, take people that are out there who are seeing this, and maybe you're a working class person around the UK who's suffering from the past 14 years of austerity, and you're thinking, let's get the migrants down. Let them be the ones that we punish first. Let it be a testimony to how the political elite think about the most vulnerable. And maybe, asylum seekers are more vulnerable than you, but once they've pinched every last penny and scraped every gold coin out of the pockets of the migrants, they're coming after you next.
Naturally.
And it'll be the elite that they leave to the last. And we see this all throughout London, the impoverishment of certain areas in London, while Chelsea blooms, while Westminster blooms. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's like, it's that idea of the underclass, you know what I mean? That like you can see that these elites really subscribe to, do you know what I mean? And it's like, it never really goes. It will just shift. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's always one scapegoat or another. Do you know what I mean? Like,
We've seen it time and time again, innit?
Naturally, if it's not,
Carry on, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, if it's not black criminality, then it's, you know what I mean? Immigrants.
But it's cyclical, isn't it?
Naturally. Naturally.
We were talking about this yesterday. It's like in the 30s, in the 30s, you had like Enoch Powell and them, man, or the black shirts. So were trying to come down Cable Street saying that it was the Irish and the Somalis, and then it was like the West Indians post World War I, and then it was this and the third. And we're just gonna go round and round, and then it was the white working class under Thatcher that had to be punished and that had to be villainized. We're just gonna go round and round, ignoring the real problems as people can appropriate more and more wealth for themselves.
Yeah. And now, obviously, just to kind of put on the devil's advocate hat a bit, just to kind of push this conversation a bit. It is a problem, though, isn't it? Actually, the fact that there are a lot of the numbers year on year are actually sort of increasing over time, right? It's been a huge spike since Brexit
in illegal migration.
Yeah.
Asylum,
or like asylum seeking.
Yeah, okay, got you.
I don't really like the term illegal migration because it's not really illegal.
No, I understand
what they're doing. And there are people who do come and exploit the system. So then, if this is the political hot topic that the country cares about, right, and we live in a democracy, then there needs to be some sort of solution to it. Now, my personal opinion is that it feels very inhumane, especially confiscating jewelry. I think that's just basically something throwing some breadcrumbs to the far right so they can actually support it as well. But I don't know. I honestly, because I'm not an expert, but I'm at lost for what could really be the solution in absence of any kind of real structural change where we, rebuild our public services.
Well, I mean, and we spoke about this yesterday at the debate, but in any sort of institution, if you illegalize something or criminalize something, then you will see a rise in illegal forms of that. If you criminalize abortion, you're going to see an uptick in like illegal abortions. So the most important thing is for us to develop an infrastructure that allows us to have legal and regulated immigration. And we talk about public infrastructure, what's good for us. It needs to be more investment into the immigration system, not because we necessarily want more immigrants, but so we have more control over it. Me and Sean spoke yesterday about how back in the day, we went down to the Bibby Stockholm. Remember that? The barge where all the migrants were.
Old school, man.
Exactly. And people were complaining that migrants had access to a barge. They were talking about it as if it was a yacht or a cruise ship. The Bibby Stockholm barge was so underfunded that outbreaks of Legionella occurred. People were committing suicide on board. It was absolutely horrific.
Just one person committed
suicide. Yeah. It was absolutely horrific. And because of that, they had to then upgrade it to spend more on it and deal with like the public outcry around that. So the underfunding of it caused a lot more problems than if they had just funded it properly in the first place.
Naturally.
And we see this in so many areas of our country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as well, right now, because of the way Shabana Mahmood has kind of postulated herself, she's garnered a lot of support across the political spectrum for taking this hardline stance.
Across the political spectrum.
Yeah, definitely.
I think on particularly one side.
Naturally.
Oh, well, I mean, not on our political side of the political spectrum.
The Reform MPs were saying, come sit over
here.
here.
They were saying, come on our side. Can you imagine it? But there is something, one interesting thing I saw, and this might be that kind of last point on this, is that
Ceebo, welcome to Tower Hamlets.
There we go.
We told you about this. So one interesting thing I did see in our House of Commons speech is that she took on Carla Denyer, who's one of the Green MPs, around the fact that so Carla Denyer is obviously calling it inhumane, it's like irresponsible, etc. But Green Party MPs have actually denied housing migrants in their own constituencies. And I do think, like, as people on the left, or, if you want to call us having humane politics, we need to be quite sort of open and transparent about how I feel like there are inconsistencies with some people's positions, not being willing to kind of take on the actual kind of burden, so to speak, of migrants in the area.
Facts. I think obviously we got a suspicion about the Green Party, and we like a lot of what they're doing, but it's like in the long grass, there's certain things I'm thinking, I don't know.
Yeah, even like their stance on stuff like NATO.
Yeah,
speak on
it. I don't know. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I think, people are like, mad hopeful because it's like, it seems like a real alternative if you're someone with left-leaning politics. But then if we look at it as far as like anything radical, they don't seem to have any want to oppose, like the neoliberal structure at large. Do you know what I mean? They seem
definitely
very happy. Okay, calm. We're going to fall in line, whether it be on a global scale as far as like foreign intervention or, just here as far as like, the way like the Tories' ruthless following of, austerity. Do you know what I mean? Has like crippled us. Like, it doesn't seem like they're all the way committed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think everyone should approach with caution. Do you know what I mean?
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
How do you think that we win back like the focus, the attention of people onto like the actual material problems that we're facing? Because it feels like a lot of times we saw this with austerity. We saw this with like, remember when it used to be like the benefit street stuff?
Yeah.
Where it's like, whenever there's real structural problems with inequality in the country, or there's something really going bad, or in like a illegal war in Iraq or something, they just cook up this narrative around some vulnerable members of society to throw to the rest of the vulnerable members of society. How can we, like, even right now, the fact we're talking about this, how can we reignite focus on the real problems?
Yeah. I think, what do you call it? In times like that, we just gotta follow like where the discourse is coming from. Like, I feel like as far as like these talking points of people on the left are like, oh, we have the fact that the issues that you're seeing, they're very structural. Like, do you know what I mean? They're completely related. They could easily be fixed if we do X, Y, Z. If we push the government to do X, Y, Z. If we take upon ourselves to do X, Y, Z. I think, as far as pushing those views out there, we don't really have, I guess, crude terms like the broadcasting power. Do you know what I mean? That the elites do, as far as like,
Don't worry, Northstar's going on to
we're trying.
Exactly. Like, if we look at even stuff like, I forgot what the phrase is for it, but stuff like can't take pay, will take it away. You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff like that was huge media, back then.
Even Jeremy Kyle and stuff like that, looking back on it.
There you go.
Bonkers.
And it's like, there's no leftist equivalent. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if you're someone where, you're not privy to like the real causes, and like, that's all you take in, that's all you will believe. Do you know what I mean? So I think, as people who, are beginning to own, outlets such Northstar politics.
Yeah.
As someone that is a musician, like I think the onus is on us as people that know better in order that to, what do you call it?
So it's like a grassroots movement of like empowering kind of communities to kind of tell their own stories and like bring it up from like the
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before we even rep on this topic, one thing I think people should always think about is Shabana Mahmood, as loads of these like descendants of immigrant home secretaries have done, or chancellors, Rachel Reeves and that sort of, have positioned themselves as really hardline politicians. We're making the tough decisions. Let's just, honestly, the question I want to pose is, cool, the pensioners had to make the tough decision. The third child benefits had to make the tough decisions. The refugees had to make the tough decisions. When do the ultra wealthy have to make the tough decisions? When do you impose that on them? Just something to be mindful of.
Definitely. And speaking of these kind of politicians who are hypocrites and don't really back their own principles on the left, no, you had some thoughts about West Streeting that you wanted to talk about?
Oh my gosh. So you know about West Streeting?
No, I feel me in.
So West Streeting, yeah, I mean, I call him a lowercase MP.
Okay.
And the reason why is because he ran in North Ilford. That was his constituency. And he ran against Lian Mohammed last year.
He's a good friend of ours.
Good friend of ours in 2024. He won by 548 votes. Travis, yeah, he should have been out. He should have been sat here with Northstar trying to make it as a podcast. But so he has, with the minimal mandate he has from his constituents, what would the predator say? You're not even rating your own ends. You're not even comfortable with your own ends.
He's actually not there.
He's not comfortable in North Ilford, but he's taken it on himself to try and launch a strategic bid to depose Keir Starmer and become Prime Minister. And I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Keir Starmer, but Wes, you just need to keep your head down, work hard for the next 4 years, build up some support in North Ilford, protect your seat.
But you know what they're going to do? They're going to just like maybe ship it to a safe seat. So,
and I think the reason I think about today, is because the lack of principles is just on show time and time again. Me and Sean, and I'm going to say this brought loud and clear, me and Sean could have been Labour MPs right now. Yeah. PP at Oxford, minority ethnics, Labour just won a landslide, putting loads of people in Parliament that shouldn't be in Parliament anyway because everyone was voting against Conservatives. We could have been fast-tracked straight into Parliament. But we took what we think is a principled decision to maybe delay the gratification of maybe material gains in terms of position to stick with our principles. Shabana Mahmood, who we just been speaking about, 2014, she was at Palestine protests. 2025, she's cracking down on Palestine protests in legislative parliament, because she thinks that's going to further her career. Here's what Northstar's coming to solve, man. We need to push political imagination beyond that. So I don't want to say West Street, bro, I might get Ceebo to ghostwrite this. there might be bars coming for you, because I'm just so disappointed, bro. Fellow Tower Hamlets resident as well. Disappointed.
A lot of people disappointed. But speaking of disappointment, well, Adnan...
It's a bad week, isn't it?
Yeah, very bad week, because Adnan Hussein has quit Jeremy Corbyn's new Your Party after concluding that its internal culture has become toxic, exclusionary and hostile towards Muslim men, straying far from the inclusive, broad-based movement he was promised. So just to kind of break it down a bit more, he describes persistent infighting, factional competition and a struggle for power and influence rather than a shared mission. He says he witnessed veiled prejudice and rhetoric about Muslim men that echoed attitudes the left claims to oppose. Hussein accuses the steering group, so like the kind of top-level people, of being dominated by a small clique and shutting out differing views. And finally, he says that the party has abandoned the pluralistic, diverse, broad church vision he signed up for, instead becoming exclusionary and inward-looking. Now, before we dive into that, Ceebo, thoughts on Your Party? Were you inspired by them when they came out?
I mean, kinda.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Unpack that though.
Mainly because, like, obviously, as far as Zara Sultana, big up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Respect, like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a fan, but big up, like, you know what I mean? You know,
You're doing your thing,
You're
innit?
doing your thing, like, do you know what I
You
mean?
got
Like,
respected to some
yeah.
extent.
Jeremy Corbyn, as far as, like, his history as a leader, you know what I mean? It
Bits
does.
of spade.
You get what I'm trying to say? There are definitely some questions that are unanswered, you know what I mean? At least some things to be desired. So, seeing the two of them come, under the banner of Your Party, like, it was definitely, like, intrigue on my part. I was like, okay, how's this going to come together? How are they going to sell this? What are they actually running on, As far as how things unfolded, and especially, like, some of the things that, like, Zara Sultana was levying against Corbyn and, like,
Called Jeremy Corbyn right wing. Basically, implied Jeremy Corbyn's right wing.
Yeah.
Misogynist.
Yeah,
Don't forget that.
bonkers.
You know what I mean? Like, that whole boys group thing is, like, particularly damning. Do you know what I mean?
But they need to have a look at the Ceebo album rollout. To look at how to roll out a party, fam. Because it has been one mistake after another. And we've been on the podcast trying to say, but there's still hope. Bro.
I don't think there's any hope anymore. I know
think it's raps.
That's been me. I've been singing there's hope here. But honestly, at this point, I'm quite disappointed.
You know what's so harmful as well is because a big thing that's always levied against the left is yeah, maybe you've got these great ideals and happy dappy tree hugging, but you can't actually manage or run a country. And this is just cementing in a lot of people's minds, maybe the median voter, that image. I think it just gets more depressing week on week.
I think as well, when you look at politics and how fickle people are, and that they just remember like these kind of funny, unserious moments in the long term. So whether that's Ed Miliband being remembered for just being a joke because he got
Scranton sandwich.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
the bacon sarnie, or whether it's like the Lib Dems who still can't shake the fact that they went back on raising tuition fees. Honestly, your party lot.
I saw James Cleverly scranning the Five Guys last night at 11 p.m. You know
Okay.
James Cleverly, former
I know-
foreign
I know
secretary.
who that is.
Former defense secretary. No, I just clocked that because you talking about Ed Miliband, this kind of thing. Bro, I'm walking, it's like 11 p.m. Yeah, I'm walking past Charing Cross here. I look in Five Guys. I say, rah. Ain't that my man who used to run the nukes? He used to run Trident. But he's mullering this Five Guys.
Five Guys that's good.
No, I think you're Fairs and you're not busy or something. But you sat there, just muller inside. Fairs.
But one of the things I wanted to kind of bring the conversation to on this particular topic is this tension on the left. Now, a lot of right-wing people...
Try to avoid it, innit?
Yeah, a lot of right-wing people have been saying, like, look, the left are trying to avoid the inevitable blowout of the fact that this leftist Islamo alliance is inevitably going to break down because of social conservatism on the one hand, that stems from kind of religious principles.
That's your side. I'll sit over here with Ceebo.
And on the other hand, real left-wing principles, which, by the way, may I add, this is a Christian, so maybe Ceebo should be on this side.
Okay,
right?
then. So we've got a Christian, a Muslim, and the perennial monotheist.
Oh, gosh. This guy, man. And hubris as well in the middle, may I
There we
add.
go.
So, yeah, like, let's just open question for the floor then. To what extent can the left really accommodate social conservatism? Hard one. I have my thoughts, but if you want to share maybe from the Christian kind of paradigm.
Yeah.
You get cancelled first. I'll go after you.
Yeah, let me.
I'll go third. I'll go third.
I'll carry my cross right now. You know what I mean? When I look in the church,
Okay.
you know, especially amongst like from our gen to like millennials, do you know what I mean? Like, there's definitely like a fostering of like that social conservatism off the back of, you know, some of the principles that are in the Bible, do you know what I mean? Or even just some of the things that have, you know, become like, you know, intertwined with like, I guess, the culture of the church, do you know what I mean? With that being said, as far as like being someone that's of that mind and then taking on, you know, like real progressive ideals as it pertains to, you know, what do you call it? Ownership, even to feminism, LGBTQ rights, like things of that nature. Oftentimes,
there's some tensions.
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and however, I do think that it is something that like I'm not of the mind that like, you know, it's impossible to be of faith and be someone that, you know, has progressive ideals. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, if we look at the teachings of someone like Christ, you know, they do center around like what do you call it? A love and compassion for, you know, the oppressed, for those that injustices are done against.
The sinners, right? The people who are meant to be looked upon from like the societal view as like untouchables, etc. Right?
I was raised Catholic, and one of my favorite parts in like Christian scripture is the Beatitudes. Like, blessed are the meek, blessed are the lowly. And I often sometimes think when I see a lot of Christian narratives around politics, that sort of core principles of Jesus have been forgotten.
Yeah.
Can't even get baby formula these days.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So man in that. Like, you know, so I think the core tenets of Christianity are often lost on those that, you know, adopt that social conservatism, you know, in lieu of progressive ideals. And I think, you know, like a lot of churches encourage that. You know, a lot of churches, you know, encourage, you know, being conservative, being, you know, like not really being for the collective in a way that was preached in the Bible. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like a cognitive dissonance, you know.
And Sean even spoke a bit about that with the politicization of like neoconservative Christianity, especially in the US.
Yeah.
I think as well, like, maybe, and I'll frame it in two ways. I think a big problem comes around defining what the material is. Like, what is a material interest? Because a lot of the people who try and resolve this tension say, oh, but we need to come around the material interests. You might think this, you might think that. But the problem is this, is say someone who's a transgender woman, for her material interests are intimately tied to her gender ideology. Because for her, she's thinking to herself, you know, my humanity is threatened by someone who's of a socially conservative nature. But for someone who's socially conservative, they're thinking, there's semantics. What is material is people's rents going up and the affordability of housing. You know what I mean? So I think sometimes, and especially as minority ethnic people and even religious minority or religious people, you know, if someone was persecuting against, or if social liberalism got to an authoritarian state where they were persecuting against the religious, you would see that as a material interest of yours being infringed upon.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's really hard to like tie those two together.
I think like from my perspective, because obviously he's claiming like this is like an attack on Islamic men, so to speak. I think there's a few interesting things here. I think on the one hand, again, kind of like echoing what you just said, Noah, like you do have to kind of remember what is the end goal of all of this and why are we building a broad church in the first place? Well, all of our communities, even though we might not agree and have the same worldviews, they're under attack. Existential threat, may I add, particularly from the rise of the far right.
But that's my question. What is the existential threat?
Okay.
Because for some it's financial impoverishment. For some it is them being able to live as they see themselves.
No, I agree. But I think like coming back to kind of social contract chat as well, look, you have multiple different communities, and part of like liberalism or secularism is the idea that you don't actually have to buy into everyone's worldview. And I think the tension starts arising when there's an imposition of a worldview onto another. So the example I like to think about is when Mohsen Ali, he's a big practicing Muslim now, he's deputy leader of the Green Party.
Good lad.
I respect him a lot. I think he's a great leader. And actually, you know, as a digression, I think the Greens have actually done this quite well, the incorporation of social conservatism on the left. But when he was running to become deputy leader, he was being forced by people of the trans community to agree with their notions of trans identity. He basically didn't, right? Because obviously the Islamic worldview is quite certain, it's quite strict on these kind of principles. But his view was like, I'm still not going to, despite my religious principles having one worldview, impose it on you and actually like support the policies that protect the trans communities, that protect trans rights. And I think that's where I kind of probably push back on like Adnan Hussein, etc. Because look, I follow classical Islam. But at the same time, I respect that now we're living in a modern age where sexuality is intimately tied with identity and therefore personal autonomy and self-determination. And so if I were to become a politician and then basically say that, because I disagree with like, you know, a certain type of like trans ideology, I therefore have to kind of take away certain rights afforded to a community who, let's be real, their kind of negative impact they have on society is very sensationalized. I would say, I actually think that kind of goes against a lot of like core Islamic principles in the same way that in Christianity, the intimate kind of connection between secularism and Christianity is even probably to some mind more explicit, because in the Bible they have the quotes around like, you know, render unto Caesar what is his, right? Like Christianity is, again, is a very personal thing. So look, I respect the pro-independent Gaza MPs, what they've done for Muslim representation as well. But in my eyes, I look to like Mohsen Ali probably as a better kind of representative of how he's navigated that tension. Because I really don't think it has to be a sort of zero sum where it's like we have to completely agree with every single principle on each other's like kind of ontological worldview.
Can I set up a little thought experiment?
Go on then.
Go.
We're what I'll say, we've got one like cool Londoner here, and then me and Sean as well. Within like the creative spaces that we might find ourselves in, you will have discussions with other people who will be of a totally different like social principle than you are. And within that, sometimes you come to like a disjuncture, an incompatibility with perhaps, you know, someone might think something about gender ideology, someone another one. How do you overcome that in the micro, and how can we actually try and push that in the macro for a broad church of movement or a broad masjid movement?
I think when it comes to that, the first question I have to ask, okay, if I do want to, you know, sidestep this clear divide in the way we see the world, I have to ask myself, is it worth sidestepping for? Is what we're doing, you know, like, is it in service of something that would mean that...
Like a greater good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If the answer's a no, okay, do you know what I mean? It's done. But if it's a yes, then, you know, I suppose this is where a pragmatism has to come in, you know, and in the context of politics, it's like, okay, what are we doing this for? If we're doing this for, you know, protecting everyone in society's rights, you know, if we're doing this for, you know, making a life that's more, equitable for everyone, then, you know, when it comes to, that includes people we disagree with, that includes people that, you know, lead lives that we may not personally lead, we may not raise our children to see as fit, you know, under whether it be our religion or just our personal morals, you know what I mean? But that should usurp anything if we're truly dedicated to that cause, you know?
You know what I think, and I've said this before in the podcast, why I was so worried about your party from day one, is because what is that long-term goal? What is that higher goal?
Right.
It's undefined. They haven't even named the party yet.
Yeah.
And when you want to develop a broad church, if you want a lot of people to be under one banner, that banner has to be clear and succinct.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't have a whole portfolio of principles that you're going to lay out covering all aspects of society. We saw the Brexit vote was able to capture a broad church because it's just quite simple, exactly in or out. And similarly, maybe the one tagline for your party is end the impoverishment of the working people. Something along those lines. Increase affordability.
Yeah.
And that is the overarching goal for everyone, such that Adnan Hussein and people that are more socially liberal come together and say, do I think that is a worthy cause for us just to work together? Perhaps. But while we're still in this sort of weird intermediary period of your party, their party, X, Y, and Z, who knows what it's about, and they're trying to fight over a whole host of principles, it's never going to happen.
Yeah, it feels, because basically what you're saying right now, it just feels so like theoretical and abstract that they don't even know what they're arguing over.
And they're trying to do too much.
Yeah.
Right.
If you want to be totally aligned with someone, marry them. But if you want to be part of a political party with like millions of people, it's going to have to be a much more minimal slate.
Yeah, no, for sure. Should we get on like a lighter topic?
But can I even ask you though, because we always
Okay,
finish
go
the
ahead.
your party topics here with like,
Go ahead, yeah.
but we're still hopeful because
Yeah.
But Amanda, are we still hopeful that it's going somewhere?
Listen, I'm a bit of a Jeremy Corbyn fan. So
Come on, uncle.
So I think that for him in particular, I think he has still a role to play in politics and inspiring younger people, because that is a man who has stood on his principles and has been a great role model to all of these different kind of marginalized communities throughout his career. And so he definitely has a space. I am, though, very disappointed, probably losing hope week on week. What about you, Ceebo?
We're Blair babies. Could future kids be Corbyn kids?
Wow. I really want to hope so. I really, part of me, like you said, I've seen, how principled he's been as a leader, and how people have seen him as a figure to believe in. Those are two, like, very important things. Do you know what I mean? Whether that's possible with your party, they may need, like, the PR cleansing of a lifetime. Do you know what I mean? Like, to right this ship, which is possible. We've seen it happen with UKIP. You know what I mean? UKIP was a joke until UKIP wasn't a joke anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it is possible. Not anytime soon, though. Do you know what I mean? There's going to be, there'd have to be a serious reworking of the entire thing.
Your party, shout the man them. We'll come clean up the image.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
And very quickly, right? Because I don't want to go in for too long about the top hot stories this week, but there is one more that we need to discuss. Donald Trump has suddenly reversed. Donald Trump. Look at these guys. Donald Trump has suddenly reversed his opposition to releasing the full Jeffrey Epstein files after facing a potential Republican revolt in Congress and pressure from victims, of course, as well, and the likelihood that the House would vote for disclosure without him. And now the big news this week is that allegedly there was an email, so not allegedly, there is an email that has been leaked from Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's brother, to Trump, to Jeffrey Epstein, saying that, does Putin have the photos of Trump blowing Bubba? Bubba being a commonly known nickname for President Bill Clinton. Guys, what is going on in America, man?
I don't even know what to say,
That, genuinely, like, I've been trying to come up with a take since I see that. Do you know what I mean? I've been coming up with some way to make sense of it. I swear to God, like, I have no clue what's going on in this country.
The thing, and I'm sorry to get like straight down into like the kind of pessimism of it,
No, go on.
but I'm just so upset about how quickly there has been like a normalized like side story within global politics. Like the elite of our political world and environment basically partaking in a child sex trafficking ring in front of us while one of them's still president allegedly, and it should become so normalized that it's not even causing the outrage it should cause.
But you know what it is as well? Like, I think once you actually look into human history throughout, bro, powerful leaders and people of that kind of rank, or these elitists, they be on some freaky ass shit, man.
They start going mad.
What's that about though?
They start going mad.
What is it about power that corrupts the soul? I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Well,
like,
But do you think it works that way around, or do you think people that are corrupted in their soul are able to obtain power in other words?
good question.
That's one for the comments.
That's-
though.
but
That's a good question.
It's real though, isn't it?
That's a
Because
really good question.
the current social structures we live in, is it a fact that people that are more corrupted and have less like moral values are going to be able to succeed, or is it that when you get there you just become corrupted?
It's probably a bit of both, though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I think so.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, because I feel like once you're in power as well, right? Like, I mean, not even to take it down the spiritual level, but in the Islamic sense, right? Giving in to your kind of nafs, right? Like your lower basis, your desires. There's less of an accountability matrix.
Right.
It consistently, I feel across the Abrahamic faiths is kind of like, even actually across all kind of faiths, perennial monotheists. You can
That's
tell
true.
me if I'm right or not.
That is correct. That is correct.
You're warned about the corruption of your soul once you kind of reach these levels of power, because who are you accountable to? Makes
And
it
you know what's even crazy that is going on in the US? Because the US was literally set up as like an anti-monarchy checks and balances thing, so no one gained that tyrannical power. Yet here we are seeing like an overclass of aristocrats doing the most depraved things with all of that.
Yeah. And also, this conversation actually can't really be had without the fact that there's explicit evidence to ties with Mossad and Israel, and actually, you know, using this whole kind of sex trafficking rings as basically blackmail for someone like the world elites. So it makes you think, like, what's really going on behind the scenes?
And I mean, even in the biography or the book published about by Virginia Giuffre,
oh yeah,
may she rest in peace,
recently,
she speaks about how one of the most violent and sort of horrific experiences she encountered over and over again was with a president who's currently unnamed, but essentially all things line up for it to being an Israeli president at the time.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's like, you know when you're young, and especially when we were young, it was still like there was still mainstream TV on, and it feels like reality just exists as this straight line linear thing, and you're thinking, oh, conspiracy theories is over there, like that's where the weird is. As you get older, you start seeing them intermingle, you're thinking, rah, like what's even going on? Because what is this?
This sounds like something someone made up.
Exactly.
Like, this sounds like it'd be hard to describe this to someone that didn't know what was going on, and like them come away thinking like you're not some like rage and like homophobe, like, do you know what I mean? It's like, no, like,
bro, imagine in 2013 trying to explain to yourself, that like Donald Trump's gonna be president, and while he's president, it's gonna come out that Putin's got photos of him allegedly giving oral sex to Bill Clinton.
Mental.
I was like, what even are the implications of that? Why does Putin have that?
And you know what? Comments, leave below. Why do you think Putin has those pictures?
Bro, I'm just baffled. Like, you know, it's just like someone sent me that story. I was looking at it. I was for, why is he on this nonsense this early? Like, I'm not even here for jokes. It's not even funny. And then I've gone on live and said, there's no way,
fam. Like when I saw it, cause I found out I saw people talking about it. I was like, nah, surely not.
I thought it was like a meme. I thought it was a meme.
I thought it was a meme as well. Yeah. Mad. But yeah, we'll leave it there for now because I actually kind of want to get into your Blair Babies anthem or album, sorry.
Yes,
so
yes.
Deeper than rap. Deeper than rap.
Deeper than rap.
We're gonna get deeper than rap. Our second week doing deeper than rap, and what an honor to have
an actual rapper.
That's great rapper here. Ceebo, I'm throwing it straight at you. Chat to me about Blair Babies.
Wow, Blair Babies. It's just an examination of our generation, man. You know, the ways in which we get through the bleak reality that is our future. You know what I mean? The way we cope with it. Why we probably shouldn't be doing what we do to cope with it. And like, you know, or proffering up a theory as to, you know, like what we should be doing instead. You know what I mean? Like it's just all of that and more. I think that's what Blair Babies is. Yeah.
So like, just talk about your experience then, like actually growing up then between like, you know, 2000 to 2010 then. Like what was that kind of like qualitative experience like?
And how you were even able to just touch on that as being like a community experience for a lot of us.
Yeah, because I've never even heard the term. Oh, but I've heard the term
But
Blair
that's
Babies.
yours, doing it?
Yeah.
But then like not being like used in this context before.
Yeah. Like, you know, I think it's just something that came through conversation with like a lot of people that end up meeting like, oh right, like so this was the same for us, you know. Like I was born in 2002, you know. So
you're youngin'.
Yeah, I'm a young boy out here. Do you know what I mean? So the mid to late 2000s, like, you know, even like the early 2010s to a point, it'll be like raw. Well, I'm having a good time, and then like I see something that's like, wait, is this normal? Do you know what I mean? Like raw, like whether it be you know, the regeneration, like the rapid regeneration like that of, you know, the communities that we're from, whether that be like being inundated with stuff at the time. Like for example, like I remember seeing Saddam Hussein's body like being carried. You know what I mean? You know, I was like, bro, like I was like eating like Cheerios or something. Like, I'm like, bro, like, am I meant to be seeing this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Calm. Turn on cartoons though. You know, even just being in the communities that we are, like, you know, they're so like, especially mine. I'm from Lambeth. That's like a melting pot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, being around that and like having that, you know, that youthful joy. But in the same way, like, what do you call it? Being like almost intuitively aware of like the context that's put you lot there. Do you know what I mean? As far as like, you know, okay, calm, everyone here is poor. You guys don't know it yet, but like everyone here is poor. Do you know what I mean? And like even just like the youth violence that loomed, especially like in Lambeth, you know, like we're one of the reasons why Trident was created. You know what I'm trying to say? So, you know, around that time it was like
Trident's the Met Police team for gang violence.
Yeah. For those that don't know. So, you know, like being around that, but yet not having like
understanding the structures. And
Exactly,
stuff,
having an understanding to, you know, place myself in all of that. It was like a blur. Do you know what I mean? A very colourful blur though, you know.
Bro, honestly, something that you got across so well on this tape here is like the furnishings of the minds for Blair Babies growing up, because it just feels like we have such a unique experience. We were even talking about this the other day. We were chilling with some friends on Friday, and it's like, it felt like every couple of years there was just a new global headline terrorist group that were just the fixation of the British media.
And even just to come on top of that as well, like there's this it was like a pretty clear narrative as well. It was quite clear there's good and evil. And those roles were like, there was no nuance about it. Nowadays, obviously, as we unpack it retrospectively, there is nuance, but back then it didn't feel like there was much.
It was like, bro, like stuff like Jihadi John. It was just big things all the time. Al Qaeda, ISIS. When ISIS hopped on the scene,
What?
bro, they had the streets.
Are you like, the hysteria around these things was like so profound. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, as far as mainstream media was like, calm in it. We are justice. We are righteous. We're gonna save you guys. Don't worry. These are the people you hate though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No questions asked. You know, and it's like growing in an environment that's like, or growing up consuming media that's like that black and white. You know what I mean? And so obviously propaganda in retrospect.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it does something to the mind. It's like, you know, there's always something to be scared of, always something to, you know, like to be feared. Like, I remember, you know, being 12 years old thinking, right, ISIS is going to do the mad thing here. Do you know what I mean? They're coming to Lambeth now, you know. These times, Lambeth is actively being terrorized by, you know, the government in power that's been, you know, putting in place all these cuts to youth services, the NHS, what do you call it, benefit cuts. Like, and these are things that, like, you know, me and my immediate family are actively feeling, but like, nah, but ISIS though.
Yeah.
And I also think like something else you got across really well on Blair Babies was this kind of common experience that we all share, because we're all Blair Babies, of like having things that were good and then seeing it slowly eradicate and go away.
Out there. Did it feel like 2012 was the end? Because I grew up in Boat E3, Tower Hamlet, stand up here, around the corner from the Olympic Park, and it felt like, rah, everything was getting better and better.
Yeah.
And then it was 2012, and after that it was like,
Well, I mean, the film came out 2012.
but you know what I'm saying? Now I'm thinking they cooked.
Yeah. Like, I can't lie. Olympics was like, that was like the series finale. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Bro,
it felt like that though.
It
It
was
really
calm,
did feel like that.
Multicultural Britain, you know what I mean?
It felt like everything was going great until something
Literally.
happened.
You know what it is? Yeah, I was like, calm. We let you guys have Graham, calm. You know, you lot had your youth centres. Yeah, it's enough now.
Bro, I literally remember going to youth centre. Like, even the fact that I was in youth parliament was literally funded by like youth clubs, etc.
Yeah.
It's completely gone now.
And it just feels like there was, I don't know, and you know, sometimes it's hard to detach what might be your like youthful nostalgia or your youthful like lens on stuff from what actually happened. But even if we say like the London experience, especially for ethnic minorities in London, like even just the tone of interaction felt like it changed like in the mid 2010s. And from a political lens, we can put a lot of it down to austerity, but you move from like grime and even like attending ciphers and then like third spaces for people to incorporate music and stuff like that to like the drill music and these sorts of things where it feels a lot more dark and a lot more isolated and a lot more, it's just a shift. And music became a lot more inaccessible for people, it felt like.
Definitely. Like, you know, them shared experience, their shared joy. Even I feel like, you know, the way in which like our communities like interacted, you know, our communities being like, you know, ethnic minorities in this country. Do you know what I mean? Like, there was a lot more social cohesion. It feels
For real.
like, do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like there wasn't this split. This is my people. This is your people. Do you know what I mean? Like, we didn't have that. And then all of a sudden, got mid 2010s. Everyone was like, no, wait, you did it. Do you know what I mean? And like that fracture, you know, like really became like a through line to like our experience out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like being a Blair Baby specifically is like watching that happen. Like, you know, you wasn't really involved in it unfolding, but like you was watching it play out.
Colour that in a little bit, because we've spoken a lot about the structures that might have impacted a Blair Baby. How do you think that on a personal level has probably framed a lot of our generations thinking about the world?
It's like, okay, calm in. Oh, we used to have this when I was 5. Okay, I'm 10. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Don't have it anymore.
Yeah. Oh, right. Why? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Okay, calm. Okay, they told me, go school, get a degree, calm, right? Do you know what I mean?
Bro,
Like,
that one's mental.
Yeah.
Like,
They call that the downwardly mobile graduate. Because like, a lot of our parents were thinking, yeah, once you graduate, yeah, you've gone clear.
100.
And it's like,
So it's like a general feeling as well, I guess, of like hope and optimism growing up, particularly like, you know, being in London, one of the richest cities in the world, but then things quite literally, the colour being sucked out of it as you get older.
literally, like, I'm not gonna lie, yeah, like, I'm not a fan of Tony Blair at all, but
Yeah.
hey, man, he has some good policies going. Like, I mean, even stuff like, you know, EMA and that, like, do you know what I mean? Like, things that, like, you know, tangible material help, you know, for people like myself. It's like, rah, thinking, okay, like, you know me. Even stuff like tuition fees, all of a sudden being you know.
But the thing about that though is that in that sort of like early like kind of Blair periods, right? It is true, like life did actually feel much better. You had low inflation, you had a lot of growth. It felt like people can, have some sort of agency over their lives. But it was his sort of reluctance and his kind of class's reluctance to actually put real regulation on financial corporations and their behaviors, which is what led to the big kind of bust of it all, right? The financial crash.
Exactly.
And so like being born in that generation, which is what you get through really well, it's like you're tasting kind of sweetness. You're tasting like, again, hope and optimism, but then it just gets like in a crash sense, goes like that.
I think as well as also just being like trying to go everything hand in hand with the Americans. My mentor, I'm not going to debate him right now, but he was with Tony Blair a couple of days before he went into Iraq. And he's a significant guy in politics, and he must have said, Tony, like, this is not like real. There's no threat. He said, but we just have to go with the US on this. And I think that was really, if you characterize it in a lot of ways, both financially but also international relations wise, that feels like the real underpinning of what happened with the Blair years. I want to get a bit like theoretical because I'm a music nerd.
Yeah, go ahead.
100.
Go ahead.
And one thing, Ceebo, I love, because people probably think, no way, you're on Northstar politics, you're a political guy, you read philosophy books and the third. You probably love all of that hibbity skibbity dibbity wibbity rap.
Yeah.
Bro, God forbid. Bro,
Bro, me too though. Me too, bro. I'm not.
Bro, I ain't listen. Turn that off.
How much of our like private conversations I was thinking, wow, like why is political music so cringe?
Bro, turn that off. Do you know what I'm saying?
As in that one there, Shake Sean, haram.
Innit?
Don't
But
rate
then
that one.
one thing, that I love about your music is that first and foremost, it's good music.
100.
Cold bars, flows.
Yeah.
My favorite track on the album right now is Always. Nasty flow switch on there. When you get into the francophone, into the flow switch.
Yeah.
But the point I want to make is this: it feels like a lot of people that are conscious creative, let's say, we're creating stuff, we're conscious. People that are writers conscious, people that are musicians conscious. They have this sort of awakening that what they're saying is correct, it can really help the world, and they're trying to communicate that to their audience. But oftentimes it becomes a bit of like jadedness around the fact that the audience isn't taking in this truth in the way they want it to. I think something that you represent really well is that, fam, I hate to break it to you, all you creators out there, the responsibility is on you. Make this entertaining. Me and Sean talk about that all the time, We need to make Northstar entertaining because we think we've got the facts here to try and get across to people, but you can't expect people to be watching something boring, something dead.
Yeah.
And how do you see that for yourself in the rap game, treading that line? Because it can be quite easy to go to the sensationalized route and talk about nonsense and crud all the time. But you'll take it to where it's like, I trust my talents to communicate this sincere message with brilliant music.
Yeah. I think it's just, I feel like a lot of creatives get, in their respective industries and like, that they fight to not see it as an industry.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So with me, like I see that music, especially now, that it's the free market. It's like calm. Anyone can release music. With that, anyone does release music. So it's like calm, innit? The onus is on you because at the end of the day, we're selling products. As much as we see music as, like, speak for myself, and as much as I see music as my passion, as something that like genuinely gives me like meaning, like I feel fulfilled doing it. This is a product I'm selling. With that being the case, why is my product worth buying? You know what I mean? It's a question I have to answer. I have to ask myself when making music. Do you know what I mean? Why is this worth listening to, and something else is not over this? Especially in an age of streaming where it'd be very easy to just not listen to this. Do you know what I mean? It'd be very easy to listen to the art that I actually want to listen to. Do you know what I mean? If I'm putting myself in the mind of the consumer. So, I have to go that extra mile, considering the fact that what I'm saying is weighty, is nuanced, is something that, takes a lot of thought to engage with. Honestly, the music's got to be that much better. So, I'm very much taking I guess almost like a pragmatic approach, because I'm not going to lie, like if I was given $1 million to make my dream album, like from when I was like 16, I'll be doing like the lyrical miracle, like, you know what I mean? That'll be my thing, you know?
Quali.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So, but I guess just growing up and understanding the music that, okay, I actually spend time listening to, and the music that like the people that I'm trying to talk to spend time listening to, it's like, okay, I do have to approach it with a sort of pragmatism. Do you know what I mean? I do have to use sounds that are current. I do have to say it in a way that doesn't sound like, I'm on the pulpit.
It reminds me of Infinite Wisdom from Mary Poppins. Spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down.
No, for sure.
It's facts.
But one thing about this conversation, which I think is really fascinating, because it's like this idea of like mediums for like political messaging. So obviously our thing's very explicit, your thing's very implicit. But is there something here, and we both have the kind of same mission to make it quite authentic and relatable to people. But is there something here as well about how like maybe politics is just a bit inherently dry, so that there's not sort of inherent demand from like the consumer to actually even engage in it in the first place? And if that is the case, then like how do we actually navigate that as well?
Yeah, I do think like there's not an inherent demand. Like I do think it is something that's like really boring.
Yeah.
If you don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're someone that's like just a 17-year-old, you know what I mean? It's like you just see things about the world. Like you have to choose between calm and it. Do I want to listen to this YT album or do I want to listen to this like PMQ or something? Like,
Shout out YT.
Shout
Shout
out
out
Shout out
YT, you know what I
Toller.
mean?
Wait,
Shout out
wait, you
Toller.
knew Toller, come on now.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Big up Toller and that, you know what I mean? But like, you know.
You're saying his is not politically conscious? Is that what you're saying? I'm joking. You know, all that degenerate music that YT does.
Nah.
Deer in the headlights, he just saw that in the shoes. Said, don't do me like this, Sean.
Oh my gosh. But it's like, yeah, you know, like I don't think there's anything calling people to politics that is not directly like, if you're not someone that's like politically inclined, like, you know, like you're not involved in things that like directly apply to you, you know, like there's no incentive to, do you know what I mean? It's not like, I don't know, it's not like it's football.
But we spoke about this before we even started recording today. It's like our mission's quite aligned with your mission.
Yeah,
where it
yeah.
feels like sometimes, politics has like a very conventional view, which is easy to observe because they would tell you politics what happens in Westminster. But naturally, people are not interested in what happens in Westminster.
Yeah.
So a lot of political media, be it like formalized like ours or like implicit like yours, tries to animate what's going on in Westminster.
Exactly.
But that's never going to be entertaining for a lot of people. So what we're trying to do is show people that politics is actually really interesting things that happen to you all the time. So it's actually less of a burden on us.
Yeah,
and that's what you've done on Blair Babies.
Literally.
You're showing that what people experience in their day to day, outside of voting and this and the third, is political. You got a bar and the benefits made me this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? And we're trying to do that as well with Northstar Politics. And I think that's important for anyone out there that's trying to ignite some consciousness around an issue they care about, is find the underlying interest that's already there. Don't just take the conventional wisdom about what that thing is. There's going to be something interesting about it, which is why you care about it at home, whatever it is you care about, and just draw that out for people. That's the role of the conscious artist.
100%.
Should we get into it? Let me land.
Let's go.
There's where we get cancelled. All right, let's go.
Low key, I think the Jews, there's a lot of coincidence. There's a lot of coincidences amassing that, like, you know what I mean? We should interrogate.
Okay, we're here.
You know what?
Ceebo.
You know what?
Is our
Episode
time up?
7?
Episode 7.
Cancelled?
Wrap it up
Right,
there.
fine. Thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.
And there's a time when I think, I just one second. Yeah, all views expressed in this Let Me Land are Ceebo's.
Yeah.
No, but come on now. You know what it is, There's a lot of sensitive topics, especially in the world we live in. But we want to show that we can handle these with care, with compassion, all these sorts of things.
So, unpack it a bit more. Then.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by
Yeah. Obviously, you know, like, I'm not of the camp that, like, you know, what do you call it? Like, there's this, like, Jewish cabal, you know what I mean? That's, like, secretly pulling the strings, you know? Like, I think we're, like, that's, like, level 1 conspiracy, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I think we're ahead of that, you know? But I do think I see things that are, like, increasingly more and more ridiculous and tied to, like, you know, like Zionism as an ideal that, like, getting harder and harder to explain. Like I was saying before we started recording, I saw a video of the mayor of New York, the former mayor of New York, Eric Adams. He went to Israel and he was talking to the people. He was like, "Yeah, I have served you." And you know what I mean? He was kissing the
wall and
the wall, you know, all that. You know what I mean? It's like, what is this? What is this? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is like, there has to be something
absurd,
to explain.
right?
Literally. Like, it's so absurd that, like, describing this sounds anti-Semitic. Do you know what I mean? It sounds like, if you haven't seen this clip and, like, you're hearing me say that, it sounds like I'm making it up.
It's become so normalized that to, like, question that the normality of that sounds a bit like, what are you trying to say?
Yeah, it's like,
But it's like, when you really think about it, that's so weird. Like, and you know what I think becomes a problem? And I'm going to take it, and it's very difficult to talk about these topics because obviously there is so much anti-Semitism going on. But I think because Israel has been like 100-year campaign to normalize itself within the global community, it stops us actually addressing what is just them as a state trying to normalize themselves and tarnishing it or throwing it under the banner of anti-Semitism. Because you see states do stuff like this all the time. I mean, bro, the UAE or like a lot of the Gulf states have sports washing all around Europe, and we address it openly because they're trying to normalize themselves as global superpowers. But because tied in the sort of ethno-nationalism of Israel is it being a Jewish state, when we address the same like performance of like these states as trying to normalize themselves as state actors, it becomes a bit harder to discuss because they will say, oh, this is anti-Semitic. But I'm saying, just as it's really weird, that like basically the Saudi state owns Newcastle United, I also think it's really weird that the Israeli state is hosting the mayor of New York and he's saying that he served the people of Israel.
you know what I mean?
It's incredibly strange.
It's weird.
I think like the dominant discourse as well is so aligned with that kind of norm setting that we speak about, where imagine like one of the first kind of litmus tests that you have in mainstream media is whether or not you answer the question correctly to, does Israel have a right to exist? Well, hang on. Does any country have a right to exist, like innately or inherently? So I think like even when you kind of take the conservatives or the right wing lot on their own principles around how we're putting our people first, we're putting British people first, or we're putting American people first, then you actually just point out, so what about this foreign influence in your politics? What about this foreign entity that's buying politicians who make the decisions for British people? What about that? Silence, complete silence.
You know, I could even add to that as well, is I think more than a lot of things, the coalescing of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, which is a really motivated by the Israeli state, does a lot of harm to Jewish people.
Absolutely.
Because it then begins to, obviously one of the dominant conspiracies or whatever it might be about Jews is this nonsense about they run the world, this and the third. But then when you see sort of very valid, open, political free speech around what a state actor is doing be suppressed, you can imagine someone that's maybe more ignorant or or maybe more inclined towards anti-Semitism being pushed down that rabbit hole quite easily. You know what I mean?
Like if I was, you know, just hypothetically, if I was an anti-Semite and I saw the way in which Israel has maneuvered around, you know, like very quickly silencing, you know, certain questions that are asked about, you know, like, okay, why did America send that much money to Israel? You know, why does this persist? Why are Israeli actors, you know, like, you know, across industries, all saying the same thing? You know, why is that happening?
I just feel like every politician has taken a trip to Israel.
You feel what I'm saying?
Even the MP we were meant to be debating yesterday, we did our research and he went on like a $5,000 trip to Tel Aviv, like sponsored by like Conservative Friends of Israel. And it's just like, this so normalized that it feels like we're the weird ones saying, hang on a sec, what's going on here? What are we doing here?
But then I guess, okay, in the nature of the let me land, let me just kind of put on my debater's hat again.
Naturally.
So it is an important conversation to have, right, around this kind of influence in our politics, etc. But when is it not really the case though that sometimes when we actually give sort of validity to these conversations, we're not actually really good at pointing out the fact that there is real anti-Semitism that exists within like this kind of discourse? Because I think like we actually have to be consistent as well here, right? We are calling out this Zionist entity, etc. But at the same time, like, you know, you scroll on Instagram, you're seeing your friends like stuff, etc. You're seeing your friends like things that are actually, you know, quite anti-Semitic. So, you know, where does the kind of accountability or personal responsibility come for, I guess, people like us who kind of speak on these topics? How do we actually face the music that there is real anti-Semitism on the rise?
I mean, I think it's about like clearly defining, you know, where we stand. Obviously, like I feel like a lot of people that like, you know, they are anti-Zionist, like they don't do a good job of like clearly stating, okay, but no, like, you know, I don't think we need to like do anything to one particular group of people. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, that's not the stance. I feel like it's very much a topic that like people are scared to engage with in a honest way. And I feel like part of that is due in fact to the like anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. Zionism is treated like a bomb. You know, like, you know, it's not really something that like people can engage with in any nuanced way. It's either, okay, calm. Do you condemn Hamas?
Yeah.
Does Israel deserve to exist? No? Okay, calm.
We know what you are.
And it's so strange because there's such easy parallels where people are able to disentangle the religion from the state.
Right.
Like, Sean, you're literally not the biggest fan of the UAE, which is like a Muslim state. And no one would accuse you of Islamophobia for criticizing the UAE.
Do you know what I mean?
So here we have this Jewish state in Israel, and if you criticize the actions of the state as a state, you can't even avoid the conversation about there being a Jewish state, which is just absurd. People criticize Britain all the time. Britain's a Christian state.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you something as well, not to obviously digress from kind of the main Let Me Land topic at hand, but as a practicing Christian as well, a lot of the support engendered, particularly in the West, is by leading Christians. So from that kind of perspective and that matrix as well, how do you navigate that? How do you see that your Christian brothers and sisters are just kind of blindly supporting an entity which I assume you think is very kind of opposed to the principles of Christ? Naturally,
you know, and I think for me, it's just about, obviously I'm aware of the teachings of Christ, you know, I'm aware of like, you know, I'm very intimately aware of like, you know, his actual message. And I'm also aware of the history of the church and how like, you know, they've maneuvered as far as positioning themselves historically, whether it be the relationship between the Catholic Church and England, whether it be America and whatever the hell they got going on, do you know what I mean? As far as one nation under God, like tying very much their state with the holy, you know, and I'm aware of like how that distortion of messaging leads to people who are, you know, otherwise all right people, you know what I mean, that are Christians, you know, being led to support the most reprehensible causes, you know, that like
a state
exist.
that's kind of eradicating the kind of ancestral lands of Christ.
You feel me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think the way that I reason with that as a Christian is like, you know, like from being like relatively well read, you know what I mean? Like, you know, like I understand that is a result of a like continued and purposeful misrepresentation of, you know, what Christianity should be. Do you know what I mean? Especially on like a state's level. Do you know what I mean? As far as like state intervention, like no Christian state should be doing that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But that is something that happens. You know, should I say that that's representative of my beliefs as, you know, a practicing Christian? I don't think so. And it's just about being able to draw that line, you know, between like my politics surrounding, you know, everyone's right to autonomy and, you know, every what do you call it? Everyone's right to exist without persecution, and how that differs from, you know, my faith being used explicitly to like infringe on those. Yeah. So, you know,
can I maybe tie in your let me land a bit? Because the way you're describing it, I'm starting to understand. So this feeling of it's just weird what's going on. It's that kind of feeling of weird. It's borderline absurd. I think there's a few strands here where it's like Israel is just doing if we take like a realist international relations approach, Israel is just doing what a lot of states do, trying to normalize themselves and exert power on the global stage. Israel is always intimately tied with their Jewish identity in a way that other states aren't with their religion, with their religious identity. Anti-Semitism is probably the most nuclear bomb topic going on at the moment. And that all ties together to create a weird scenario where you can't analyze a state based on its actions. Because to say that it is strange that a representative of the United States in Israel saying that he served the Israeli people is now suddenly, a critique of that is now suddenly tied in with anti-Semitism or hate of Jewish people, which is not logical, nor is it reasonable. Whereas if we take any reasonable like parallel, if, I don't know, Sadiq Khan was to head over to Indonesia and say, I've served your people well in my time as London mayor, bro.
You know what I mean? It's strange. You know what I mean? It is absurd. And I think, you know, like you said, that weird climate around those, like around, you know, just the absurdity of what we're seeing as far as like a state trying to legitimize itself by any and all means necessary. You know, I think that absurdity lends itself to, you know, like it's almost like a thought experiment. It's like Schrodinger's state. You know what I mean? Like this exists, but can't say like it's moving as a state does. Otherwise, you know, that's a direct infringement on the rights of Jewish people globally.
Yeah, and you get that idea from famous documentary by Adam Curtis called Hypernormalization. And I think a way to disentangle that normalization and try and readdress the absurdity of something is just to be really articulate with what you're saying. To really make clear when you're discussing this with someone who might have sipped the Kool-Aid of like the coalition between Jewish identity and Israel is exactly what you're delineating between the state actions of Israel as a state, irrespective of its Jewish identity, and Jews as a global religion that we respect.
And I think it's been working, right? Because the biggest kind of right-wing voices, or some big right-wing voices, particularly in America, because obviously America set the discourse for a lot of this, are starting to kind of, like you say, realize they sipped the Kool-Aid for a bit too long.
And even in the face of that, it's always important to be really articulate and clear in the fact that you're not buying into whatever they might have going on behind the scenes in terms of conspiracy theories.
And like white identity politics, that type of stuff.
Because I like that. Let me land.
Yeah,
you had me shook at the start, but I think we came in. It was a rough landing, but we got there.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fairs, but you're brave enough to take it there.
Yeah, as I said, just once more, just in case they didn't hear, all views.
That was his views, not ours. Nice. Episode 7, wrapping up. Noah, how'd you find that?
Bro, we might have to get rid of this guy.
Hear that?
I mean, it's me and Ceebo and Northstar from now on.
All I'm saying is, I think we had some nice Islam, Christian paradigms.
You're trying to ice me out?
I think we should just do a little spin-off one.
You know,
you're down for that one?
Yes, you know what I mean?
But honestly, it's been a pleasure, you know.
I'm so happy to be here.
The synergy was making sense.
Literally.
So we're going to obviously get into our spiel about subscribe, like, comment, etc., etc. But Ceebo, do you have anything to let the people know at home?
Yes, Blair Babies out now. Please keep supporting that so the label doesn't drop me. Please find me everywhere. All social media platforms at Ceebo S Weezy. Yes,
buy that.
Yes.
Don't even just stream that. Buy that.
Buy that. You know what I mean? We're going to have CDs. We're going to have vinyls. We're going to have T-shirts. And we're going to have a show. We're pulling out all the works.
Bruh.
complete.
Let me come through. What the hell?
Yeah, surely.
No,
Surely.
they're not here yet. Do you know what I mean?
okay.
Like, yeah. Like everything, we're working on it, but it's gonna come. Do you know what I
We'll
mean?
live
So-
show a little opening, a little live podcast opening.
Yeah, that,
Just keep the levels low, keep the levels calm before.
yeah, you know what I mean.
But honestly,
So-
bro, a pleasure. And even just to like hear you get into stuff, but always keeping it cool, keeping it cultural as well. But that's inspirational for people at home. When we bump into people at the streets, one thing they say is you're not like the rest of the people we're seeing on the glass screen in the sense of you're communicating in a way that's natural, you're communicating in a way that is intelligible for people. And you, for your music, you're doing that at an even higher level than we could. You're doing it over beats.
True.
Bro, it's been a pleasure.
Ceebo, please come back on in the future. We want you back here. Yeah.
I would love to be back.
Bro,
You
come,
kidding
back,
me?
come back with the Grammy. When you that's the kind of trajectory this guy's on. Yeah, when you
Yeah.
get that Grammy, come back and sing.
As you
with
remember
us.
me when you're
Stop it,
famous,
guys.
innit?
Stop it.
Yeah, remember the man them.
Of course.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Remember, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, please rate it. And for now, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.